This is one fat boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for April 1st. Tonight there's 10 games. I'll be going over the spreads and over-unders for each of them. Before I get into it, I know the last few days, and especially the upcoming weeks, games are very random. It's towards the end of the playoffs, so trying to predict these games, all of them, it's very random, so it's hard to get every single one right. So I'll try to point out which ones I have the most faith in, and then which ones I'm iffy on. So let's get into it. For Dallas at the Wizards, be leaning towards Dallas minus 8.5. So Dallas, they should win this game. They've been playing very well last month, and they're just trying to climb up in position in the Western Conference. So I see them continuing to win, as the Wizards really don't have anyone to slow down the Mavericks offense, especially Luka. I will be leaning towards under 220.5, as Dallas's defense has been very good. So I do expect the Wizards to struggle offensively. But overall, for this game, I would be leaning towards Dallas just winning in general, just so I a few points. But they should be able to score, cover an 8.5 spread. But safest is just for them to win. For Toronto at Orlando, be leaning towards Toronto minus 10, as Toronto has been, when they've been winning at, past few games, they have been winning by quite a few points. So that's why I'm leaning towards Toronto minus 10. Then Orlando, in turn, is kind of the opposite. When they lose, they are losing. And Toronto having won 4 games in a row, and Orlando losing 4 games in a row, I'm just going to bet on the hot team with Toronto winning and being able to cover a 10-point spread. And I'll be leaning towards an under, mostly due to the fact that Toronto, they can play solid defense, and Orlando's offense being kind of random. Even though Orlando is playing at home, they might be able to score more there. But over-under, this is really, I would say this is more of a shot in the dark. So this is one I'd not be as confident, but Toronto winning is something I would be confident in. For Indiana at Boston, so I'd be leaning towards Indiana plus 15, as even though Boston, they should win this. I don't see them losing this game. I think just winning by 15 plus points might be a little bit of a stretch. They might be a little bit more lax. They did lose their last game, but they might turn around. If you really think that Boston's gonna have a turnaround game and really just beat up on Indiana, bet the opposite, Boston minus 15. But I think betting against a 15-point spread in an NBA game, it's kind of a little bit of a stretch. So that's why I lean towards Indiana plus 15. And if Indiana does stay within 15, that means they had a decent scoring game. So that's why I lean towards an over 223. But if you think that Boston will cover that 15 points, Boston will have to score quite a bit to cover a 15-point spread. So that's why I'm leaning towards an over overall for this game of 223. For Detroit at the Thunder, be going with the Thunder plus 4, mostly due to the fact that Detroit played last night, and they did win. But now you have to travel to OKC and play another game. So that's why I'll be leaning towards Thunder plus 4, just because usually the team that is rested usually comes out with the win. So just going to follow that logic, and especially with two bottom tier teams, I think rest is an important factor. I will be leaning towards under 221, as I think the Thunder, their offense isn't the greatest. They just tend to keep games close, and then in turn Detroit is kind of the same way. Their offense isn't the greatest. They keep games kind of close, but I think overall it's these are not crazy scoring games, but it could be one of those games where, since they're young, just might be a little faster pace, so there's just more possessions, which will kind of inflate the score. But I just know shooting percentage is not going to be great overall in this game, so that's why I'll just be leaning towards an under. For the Kings at the Rockets, so we kind of get a repeat of a game from 2 days ago, and I kind of expect similar results, but I think Houston might be able to sneak away with a win. But overall, this is almost kind of a playoff game for them, as it's both teams are not going to make the playoffs, and it is one of their last few games, so it could either be a competition of trying to tank, as they kind of saw in the fourth quarter of the last game, where they were scoring fine all game, and just 32 total points between them in the fourth quarter. Or one team might just challenge themselves, like just try and win this and avoid like tanking. So overall, spread wise, I probably wouldn't bet on this. But if I had to lean towards a team, Houston plus 1.5. But I think overall this should be a high scoring game, as I think that fourth quarter was a fluke scoring wise, as most of the quarters, like either one or both the teams should be scoring over 30 points a quarter. So that's why I'd be leaning towards an over 232. For the Suns at the Grizzlies. So overall, I think the Suns are still going to win. But I think Memphis will keep it close with the plus 7.5 margin. I will be leaning towards an under, as the Suns, like, overall, I think the Suns, like, their offense is fine. Like, they'll score. It's just the Memphis, how they play offense, how they play defense. Might be a little higher scoring. Like, I don't think the Suns are going to be scoring 125, but Suns aren't giving up 125 either, let alone like 110 points or like 115. So I think the overall spread for scoring, I'd probably put between like 222 to like 238. So it's kind of a big spread, but it'll probably fall somewhere in there. So it's like under 228, over 228. I can see both happening. And then almost same with the spread, like, because I'm expecting the Suns to win. Like, they're almost like on a mission to get like over like 65 wins. Like, they'll probably end up with like 65 or 66 wins this season if I were to predict that. And overall for this game, like, it should be exciting. I think it'll be a close one that the Suns just come out with a win, but I would not be surprised if the Suns just kind of blow out Memphis just to prove their dominance. For the Clippers at the Bucks, so both teams played last night, and both teams played in overtime. So honestly, forget trying to predict a spread for this, as it's already hard enough like trying to predict like how a team will play in a back-to-back, in the second night of a back-to-back, let alone two teams, and let alone both of them playing in overtime. So if I had to lean towards one team, I just lean towards the Bucks, just because they have more depth and you can kind of spread out the minutes a little bit more. So just using that logic, that's why I lean towards Milwaukee winning and then covering an 8.5 spread, as I think there's enough talent on the Bucks to just outlast the Clippers and like cover like an 8.5 spread, which if it'd just be smart for the Bucks to just try and win this in the first half so they can actually rest their players, as I know that's a big thing with Mike Budenholzer, because that was a whole meme like a few years ago, like can't play Giannis more than like 30 minutes a game. So that's why I'm just leaning towards Milwaukee winning. I will be leaning towards an under 235.5. I know the spread, the over-under hasn't come out yet, but if I were to just bet on a spread, I'd go under 235.5, as both teams played last night in overtime. So I don't think their offense is going to be a little sluggish. Their defense might be sluggish, but I think just having the legs on offense will be affected in this game. For Portland at the Spurs, so we lean towards the Spurs minus 15, even though earlier in the video I already had my thoughts on a 15-point spread, but just with the Spurs, like, they're actually fighting for a playoff spot. They have been playing very well. Portland is not a great team. Like, no one's really playing for them. So that's why I'll be leaning towards Spurs. Spurs should for sure win this, as they are playing for that 10 seed for a play-in spot, and they should be able to blow out Portland. Like, just take care of them early so you can focus on the next game. Like, just get the win and get out. We lean towards under 231 due to the fact that I think the Spurs will be able to hold Portland to a low amount of points, like 105 and lower, like somewhere in there. Would not be surprised if I see like them in the 90s. Spurs, they'll score a lot, but I think like no matter what, they're probably scoring over like 122, 125, like somewhere over that. I just take the under, even though I think that Spurs are going to score a lot. It's just that Portland is just going to suck offensively. So just adding them up, it'd be probably under 231. For the Timberwolves at Denver, be leaning towards Denver minus 4, as the Timberwolves have been struggling. Denver wants to stay out of the play-in spot, keep that 6th seed. So that's why I'll be leaning towards Denver -4 and just winning in general. I will be leaning towards an over for this game, even though I could see both an over and an under. But the reason why I would lean towards an over is that the Denver offense is good. Like, you have Jokic, like no one on the Timberwolves will be able to slow him down. It's like, you can throw a lot of high energy guys at him, but I think just how he plays is he just dissects how Minnesota will play defense, and Minnesota is always going to give a lot of points. So Denver, they should have a lot of points. It's now just more in turn Denver's defense slowing down the Minnesota offense. That's where you can kind of determine the over-under. Like, will Minnesota score a lot of points, or will they be like last game where they only have like 106 points, or maybe like somewhere around there, like a low 100 total? I think Minnesota should be able to get like 110, 115, and Denver will be in that 120ish range. So I think the overall total will be pretty dang close, like in the 230s. Like, it'll just probably be one of those like spreads where it's going to be like right on the Vegas odds, where you can put it like 3 points, it's going to be within those 3 points. So that's why I'd be leaning towards an over 236. For the Pelicans at the Lakers, so even though the injury report are claiming that LeBron and Anthony Day-to-Day Davis could possibly be playing in this game, and it seemed like both will be playing against the Pelicans. So this is a playoff style game for sure, like for sure, as this will kind of determine that seeding. This is a must-win game for the Lakers. I think the Pelicans pretty much have stamped their spot as like a 9 or 10 seed, but even with all that, I'm going to lean towards the Pelicans plus 1.5 just for memes. And it'd be hilarious if Lakers lose with both like their star players playing. It is their first game back, so there will be a lot of rust, that's for sure. I think this will mostly be a 6v5 all game with the refs on the Lakers side. But I think the Pelicans defense, and then if they keep it close, I think the Pelicans will have enough answers, enough like actual quality players to make the plays towards the end of the game. And overall, I think this will just go under, as I think the Lakers offense will weirdly struggle with like all the players being there, as they haven't played together like that much. So it'll just be like a lot of miscommunications that'll just cost them like a few extra points, and just lean towards the Pelicans win. But overall, this game, I probably will not touch at all, as I really don't know what to expect from a LeBron and Anthony Davis return. Thank you for watching. As always, bet responsibly. Get as much info on these games as you can, because the last like 2 weeks of the NBA season, very random. But have fun watching sports anyway. So thank you for watching.